Welcome to my channel. Today we have some great news for heart patients. If you haven't heard about this yet, stay tuned. Alright, so let's talk about something that might sound like straight up sci-fi, but is actually happening right now in heart medicine. Artificial intelligence is stepping into the world of cardiology, and instead of just crunching numbers in the background, it's actually helping doctors make decisions that are changing people's lives. I'm talking fewer hospital stays, better use of medications, and even predicting life-threatening conditions before they happen. And yeah, it's all real. Let's start in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai, where researchers just wrapped up a study on a program they built called HF-AI, short for Heart Failure AI. Now, this wasn't just some side project in a lab. They trained this software on real patient data from 2020 through 2022, fed it the guidelines cardiologists follow from both national and international standards, and then rolled it out with actual patients. The people they focused on had a condition called heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. That's when the heart's main pumping chamber, the left ventricle, just isn't strong enough to circulate blood through the body like it should. It's a serious problem, and the people dealing with it are some of the most fragile patients you'll meet. High risk of hospitalizations. High risk of death. The trial wasn't massive, it involved 50 people, but what they found is kind of jaw-dropping. For 3 months, each of those patients used a smartphone app at home to send their blood pressure readings straight to their cardiologists. Behind the scenes, HF-AI analyzed those readings and came back with treatment recommendations. Things like whether to add a new drug, or if the dosage on an existing medication should be adjusted. The cardiologists, of course, had the final call. But here's what's wild. They accepted HF-AI's recommendations 90.8% of the time. That's not just a coin flip. That means doctors trusted this software almost every single time it spoke up. Because of that trust, something else happened. The cardiologists more than doubled their use of what's called guideline-directed heart failure medications. These are the therapies experts know patients should be on, but in the real world, doctors don't always get around to prescribing them as often as they should. With HF-AI nudging them in the right direction, the number of patients actually receiving those evidence-backed treatments shot up. And then the big result: hospitalizations. In the 6 months before enrolling in the study, out of those 50 patients, 23 were hospitalized. That's almost half the group. But in the 6 months after HF-AI was introduced, only 6 ended up hospitalized. That's a 74% reduction. For people with heart failure, that's a massive deal. It's not just about saving money for the hospital system, though that's obviously a part of it. It's about people actually staying at home, feeling better, and avoiding those exhausting, dangerous trips to the hospital. The first author of the study and co-inventor of the software, Dr. Raj Khandwala, who's the division chief of cardiology at Cedars-Sinai Medical Group and also directs digital therapeutics at the Smith Heart Institute, summed it up pretty directly. He said people with heart failure are among the most fragile patients they care for, with extremely high risks of both hospitalization and death. But by translating home blood pressure data into treatment advice, HF-AI lets them fine-tune medications sooner and keep more patients out of the hospital. And honestly, those numbers back him up. This wasn't some random tech company pushing their way into medicine either. The study was funded by Cedars-Sinai Technology Ventures, which exists specifically to support innovative ideas that improve patient outcomes. James Lohr, their chief intellectual property officer, even pointed out that the research is exactly what their mission is about: investing in technology that makes a real clinical impact. And they're not done. The plan is to roll this out to more patients at Cedars-Sinai and keep testing how well it works. Now, because this is medicine, there are always disclosures. The paper notes that the software is tied to a U.S. provisional patent application number 63314-207, filed back in February of 2022 by Cedars-Sinai. One of the authors, Dr. Greg Fonarow from UCLA Medical Center, has consulted for a laundry list of pharmaceutical companies: Abbott, Amgen, AstraZeneca, Bayer, Boehringer Ingelheim, Cytokinetics, Eli Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, Atronic, Merck, Novartis, Pfizer, all the usual suspects. The other authors said they didn't have any relationships that could be considered conflicts of interest. So that's Cedars-Sinai's HF-AI project. A small study, but the results are loud and clear. Give cardiologists AI support, and patients stay out of the hospital. But that's not the only frontier where AI is making waves in cardiology. Let's switch gears to something happening in London that takes things in a completely different direction: electrocardiograms. At Imperial College London, researchers have been developing what they call IRA-CHE, which stands for an Artificial Intelligence Enhanced Electrocardiogram model specifically designed for predicting complete heart block, or CHE. If you've never heard of it, complete heart block is a dangerous condition where the electrical signals between the top and bottom chambers of the heart get completely interrupted. It's serious enough that the standard treatment is usually a permanent pacemaker. The catch? Regular ECGs, which are the gold standard for diagnosing heart rhythm issues, often don't show any signs of CHE when the test is run. That means doctors can miss it, and patients can collapse or suffer major complications before anyone even realizes what's going on. The researchers behind IRA-CHE wanted to see if AI could pick up on patterns that traditional ECGs miss. They didn't just test it on a small group either. They used two huge datasets. The first was the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center cohort in the US, which had over 1.16 million ECGs from 189,539 participants. The second was the UK Biobank cohort, a massive long-term study involving over 50,000 participants between the ages of 40 and 69. Now, here's how they structured it. For the BIDMAC cohort, the internal testing dataset for incident CHE had 61,676 patients with 791 events, which works out to about 1.3%. IRA-CHE predicted incident CHE with a C-index of 0.836. That's a statistical measure of accuracy over an average follow-up of 6.66 years. Participants in the high-risk quartile had an age and sex-adjusted hazard ratio of 11.6 for developing CHE compared to the low-risk group. That means they were more than 11 times more likely to develop it. They also ran sensitivity analyses, testing the model against pacemaker implantation data. The C-index there came out to 0.799 for predicting who would need a pacemaker, and 0.814 when they combined CHE or pacemaker implantation as the outcome. When they look specifically at year 1 predictions, the ORAC, a measure of how well the model discriminates between cases, was 0.889. Compare that to the ORAC for the presence of bifascicular block, a traditional risk marker, which was only 0.594. That's a massive jump in accuracy. Then came external validation in the UK Biobank cohort. Out of 50,641 participants, 35 developed complete heart block during an average follow-up of just over 4 years. That's only 0.07%, but it gave the AI another chance to prove itself. The C-index for prediction in that group was even higher, 0.936. And again, people in the high-risk quartile were way more likely to develop CHE, with an age and sex-adjusted hazard ratio of 7.17. They even looked at a subset of the BIDMAC group who had ECGs performed in emergency departments and a history of syncope, that's fainting, in the 30 days before. Out of 2,417 patients in that subset, 17 had an event or at least a year of follow-up. IRA-CHE was able to discriminate risk within 1 year, with an ORAC of 0.832. In terms of raw numbers, the binary predictions showed a sensitivity of 0.706 and specificity of 0.835. In plain English, the AI wasn't perfect, but it was far better than current methods at picking out who was really at risk. The researchers summed it up by saying IRA-CHE can stratify risk not just on a big population scale, but also in more specific groups, like people showing up with fainting spells. And that matters, because if you can flag someone as high risk before they collapse, you can move faster to monitor them, or even consider preventive interventions. So, when you zoom out, you've got two very different projects happening almost simultaneously. On one hand, Cedars-Sinai's HF-AI is working in the trenches, helping doctors fine-tune meds for heart failure patients in real time, slashing hospitalizations by 74% in just 6 months. On the other, Imperial College's Ira Chiachi is peering into ECGs with machine learning eyes sharp enough to spot life-threatening electrical issues years before they fully develop. Both tell the same story. AI isn't about replacing cardiologists. It's about giving them tools that make them sharper, faster, and more precise. Whether it's guiding prescriptions or flagging hidden dangers, AI is stepping in where human intuition or traditional testing sometimes falls short. And when the numbers look like this hospital stays plummeting, prediction accuracy hitting the mid-90s, it's pretty hard to ignore. That's it for now. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one.